Hello and welcome to today's video. This time I've chosen an article about Venice, the city of Venice, which, as you can see on the map, is located here in the north of Italy. And it's currently experiencing problems due to the number of tourists that are visiting it. It's such an attractive place that so many people want to visit it in the summer that this is generating problems for the people who live there. And the article is about how the local government is trying to do something to reduce the numbers that visit during tourist season. So again, we'll read it through together and look at some keywords. Don't forget that if you want to go back after you've watched the video and look at a particular word again, you can actually find that relevant part of the video in the video description, and you can click on the chapter to skip to that point. So let's have a look at the first paragraph. The Italian city of Venice is expected to approve the trial of a €5 fee for daily visitors in a bid to control tourism. All visitors over the age of 14 will have to pay the charge and book their entry to the city in advance. The trial will run during peak tourist periods next year, according to Simone Venturini, the City Council member for tourism. So let's have a look at the first word we've highlighted here at the top. This is the word trial. Now, like most of the words that we look at, it has more than one meaning. So let's have a look at a few of them. The basic meaning of trial is to test something, really. It's quite similar to test. So if you're conducting a trial, you are testing it to see if it functions well, if it works, if there are any problems. For example, in medical trials, new medicines, new pharmaceuticals are tested first on animals and then later on human volunteers in order to see if they work correctly, if they're effective, and also if they have any side effects. Another common use of trial is in the legal context. So if a criminal goes on trial, that means they have to attend a court and be judged in that court. That is also called a trial. So in this case, obviously, it's the first definition that is relevant here because, as it says, they are testing out this €5 fee for daily visitors just to see if it actually does what they want it to do, which is to reduce the number of tourists. So let's have a look at the second word. This is bid. Again, we have several meanings. A common use of this is in auctions. So when there's an auction, for example, if you are selling an expensive painting at auction, that means different people can bid to buy that painting. So they make an offer, and whoever makes the largest bid, the largest offer, will win the auction, and they will be able to buy that painting or whatever it is that is being sold. In this case, it's a little different. We're not talking about an auction here. We're talking about an attempt to control tourism. So this word is also used more or less as a synonym of attempting to do something. So the third word we have is run. Run. It says the trial will run during peak tourist periods. So this word run is actually nothing to do with the physical activity of running, which you may already know. Run is, of course, an irregular verb. Run, ran, run. People like to go running in order to keep fit, but we also use the word in a slightly more figurative way. For example, on your computer, if you run a program, that means that you start the program. The program is executed. It's running. And that is more or less the meaning that we're using it here. We're talking about the trial, which will be executed. It will be in progress. It will be running during the peak tourist periods. So that brings us to the fourth word, which is peak. This is a noun. And it's often used to describe the very top of a mountain. So the top of the mountain is called the peak, and it is used figuratively to talk about, in this case, the high season, when the number of tourists visiting Venice is at its peak. It's at the highest point. We can see in the graph here that the peak tourist season in Venice usually is in the middle of the summer, in July and August. So let's move on to the next paragraph. Venice is grappling with huge numbers of tourists, which threaten to overwhelm the historic island city and damage its fragile environment. The city is just 7.6 square kilometers in size, but it hosted almost 13 million tourists in 2019, according to the Italian National Statistics Institute. Numbers of visitors are expected to exceed pre-pandemic levels in the coming years. So to start off with, let's have a look at the word grappling. So to grapple is a verb. It's a regular verb, so the past is grappled. The basic meaning of this is really a physical fight or a struggle between two people. For example, wrestling. In wrestling, people have to fight each other, and they try to grasp each other or grab each other with their hands and their arms in order to overpower their opponent. So that is a good example of physically grappling with another person. However, it is often used, as in this case, to refer to a metaphorical grappling. So you're not doing anything physical here, but you are trying to deal with a particular problem in your life. In this case, the city of Venice is grappling with the huge numbers of tourists. It's trying to manage that and find a solution to it. So we often see it used in conjunction with the noun problem. And also notice the preposition that is used here, grappling with a problem. Another use of grappling. If you're a fan of Batman, you might actually know this already, but he often uses a grappling hook, which is a long rope or cord with hooks attached to the end. And this is fired up over a wall on the top of a high building, and it grapples onto the building, and then you can use it to climb up. So moving on to the second word, this is again a regular verb. It's to overwhelm. And if a person feels overwhelmed by a situation, it generally means that they cannot cope. They don't feel comfortable. They cannot deal with that situation. Often we get overwhelmed if we have too much work to do. Maybe too many things to do at the same time, and we cannot deal with that. So we feel overwhelmed, we feel under pressure, we feel stressed. You can also feel emotionally overwhelmed if something very dramatic or tragic happens to you and you cannot deal with those kind of feelings you have. Then again, we would say you are overwhelmed by the emotion. In this case, it's the city of Venice that is being overwhelmed by the sheer number of tourists who are coming to visit it. As we can see in the picture next to it here, there's a huge crowd of people, and the city just cannot deal with this number of people. It's having a very negative effect on its fragile environment. All of those people obviously are consuming resources, they're creating waste, and the city cannot cope with that. So let's move on to the third and final word in this paragraph. This is hosted. To host, again, it's a verb. Also a noun as well. If you are a host, then that means that you have invited some people to an event. Perhaps you're having a party, a dinner party in your home, and those people you've invited are your guests. And you, since you are the one who's organizing the event, you are the host. Now, it's often used when we're describing big events, for example, the Olympics. In 1992, I believe it was, the city of Barcelona, where I live, hosted the Olympic Games. It hosted the Olympic Games. So that means the city organized the event, and a lot of people from all over the world came to visit, to watch it, and to participate. In this case, of course, the city is hosting the tourists because the tourists are going and they're staying there. So moving on to the third and final paragraph. Over-tourism is widely recognized as an urgent issue for Venice. Earlier this year, UNESCO said the city should be added to a list of World Heritage Sites in danger, as the impact of climate change and mass tourism could cause irreversible changes to it. It is not clear, however, if the plan to introduce a daily charge will deter tourists. The ticketing plan has been repeatedly postponed over concerns it will seriously dent tourist revenue and compromise freedom of movement. But Venturi said the new system will make Venice a trailblazer on the global level. So the first word we have highlighted is issue. It is possible to see this as a verb, but most commonly you will come across it as a noun. An issue is basically a topic, a problem, a subject that has to be addressed. So in this case, it's quite an urgent issue. So there's a lot of urgency about this. A solution has to be found quickly. So on a global scale, some of the issues that the world has to deal with are things like poverty, inequality, war, global climate change, things like that. Those are topics that are quite urgent. So let's move on to the second word. We have the noun site here, used in the plural, sites. So a site is used in many different ways, but basically they're all to do with places. So it's a place where something happens. For example, a campsite is a place where people can go with their tent or their caravan and they can stay for a holiday. A building site is a place where construction is occurring. They're building a building at that place. And of course, you will often see this word in association with the word web. So a website is like a virtual place on the internet. In this case, we're talking about heritage sites. So UNESCO, this organization, compiles a list of very important places all around the world that should be preserved, and sometimes they're in danger. And these sites, these places, usually have some cultural significance to the world. Maybe they are unique or they have some other value. So moving on to the next word, we have the verb to deter. Deter. This is a regular verb, so the past is formed with deterred. And the plan here of introducing this €5 charge is to try to deter the tourists from visiting Venice during the peak period. So we can understand there that to deter somebody from doing something is to dissuade them. It means that you don't want them to do it. You're trying to stop them from doing it. So a good example of this would be putting an alarm in your home. Usually when people do that, they put a sign outside on the front door so that everybody can see that there is an alarm here. And the hope is that this will deter criminals from breaking into your house. Moving on to the penultimate word, we have postpone. This is a regular verb. In the past, it's pronounced postponed. So the first thing I should tell you about this is that we often use a phrasal verb here to express the same idea. And that phrasal verb is to put off. To put off. So it's exactly the same meaning. Like most phrasal verbs, it's more commonly used in conversational English in less formal situations. But you do hear phrasal verbs a lot. So it is a very good idea to familiarize yourself with them. So if you put off something, if you postpone it, it basically means you're going to do that event some point in the future instead of right now. For example, if you have a meeting, perhaps a work meeting, but you fall ill, you get sick, then you probably have to postpone that meeting. You have to call everybody and tell them that you're going to do it the following week or some other point in the future. You have to put it off or postpone it. So moving on to the final word we have here in this paragraph, it is the word dent. Now, a dent as a noun firstly, can be used to describe physical damage, particularly with something like a car. So if you are perhaps parking your car and you accidentally hit a tree, then probably this tree will make a dent in your car. The metal will be deformed and damaged. This is a dent. But you will often see this word used figuratively, as in this case, to talk about an impact. So in this case, they are worried that the ticketing plan will make a dent in the tourist revenue. So it might affect the amount of money that is received from the tourists who are visiting. Obviously, if the number of tourists decreases, then the revenue, the amount of money, will also decrease. There'll be a serious dent in that tourist revenue. So that's it for today. We've finished the article. Thank you very much for listening. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you have, then please like the video and subscribe to get notified when there are new videos available. Until next time, goodbye.